the East, and we'll go kind of, I think, right after those five.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a drop off, so we can start with those five in the East, kind of how they match up with one another very briefly. We don't have to go through every single matchup,
Yeah.
but and then we'll do the same with the West.
Yeah. So usually you go with the defending champ to then repeat, unless there's a major overhaul or retirement sort of thing. But in this instance, I don't have that happening. I have the Bucks as the best team in the East, simply because, well, they have a head coach who didn't get fired, or at least suspended. But they re-signed Bobby Portis, which is a big thing, and then they signed Joe Ingles, at small forward in free agency from
That's
Portland.
a big pickup.
Yeah,
He's a player, man. In the playoffs, he always plays well.
Yeah, and they didn't. The big thing is they didn't lose anybody of significance. So just adding more talent and then bringing back the same guys, I see that as a recipe for success. They just got to make sure Middleton stays healthy. I think that's the big thing.
So how do they match up against the other four? Because I think they lost to the Celtics, right?
Right. They lost game 7. Yeah.
That's right. So how do they match up with those other top four?
Yeah. So, I think, you got at point guard Drew Holiday, who's a great two-way guard. So he matches pretty much with anyone. As far as defense goes, he's the best. Offensively, he'll put up a decent stats, usually between 15, 20, sometimes less, a little bit less, but he contributes very well and is the best defensive point guard in the East, aside from Ben Simmons, if you consider him a point guard. But as far as matchups go, I really think the only team that could honestly give them a headache if they were to match up in the playoff, well, there'd be two teams. Two teams being, yeah, they were beaten by Boston, but I don't think that's the problem. I think it's more along the lines of Miami and then Philadelphia would be the biggest problems, simply because they have an interior guy like Embiid for the Sixers, and then for the Heat, it's going to be Big Bam Bam. But they've got big centers who can really disrupt the paint and cause problems because Giannis isn't a three-point shooter. He's a guy in the paint, struggles oftentimes with the line shooting free throws. But those are the teams that I think would give him a headache. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, number 2. Who do you got at 2? You have Boston at 2?
Right. So I have Boston at 2. I know they just lost their head coach and all that, but even though they lost him, they've known it for a good month and a half now. So they've gotten used to their new head coach. But they're bringing back the same guys. They got the ssame lineup: Marcus Smart, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Horford. But then they, of course, added Brogdon, which was a huge pickup. I know they signed Gallinari, but he got injured, and then they got Blake Griffin rolling off the bench now in place of Daniel Theis, essentially. So,
who are the teams that would give them matchup troubles?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be the same type of teams. I think just they've got great guards, so they've got like Marcus Smart who can cancel you out. Defensively, he's a big, and Boston's made up of a lot of like high intensity. Like when they're on, they'll really get the crowd revved up and kind of their team revved up, like Smart and Horford. Tatum's, I think he's remarkably underrated. He always kind of has been, because I think of him kind of like a Kawhi Leonard, maybe not as good defensively. No, obviously not as good defensively, but he's just one of those guys who it's really hard to stop him. And so I honestly think, again, I would say the Sixers simply because they have Thibault at small forward who can match up against him. And then I would probably say, I'd say Brooklyn and maybe even the Bucks. I say Brooklyn because if they need to, they can switch up Durant to play someone else. Durant could guard him, but if they need to, they could put Simmons on him. because he's a great defender and stop him. And then as far as the Bucks go, well, you have Giannis, and then you got let's say a healthy Middleton. That would do some help.
Gotcha. All right, number 3, who you got in the East?
Yeah, so number 3, again, it was kind of a toss up between 3 and 4. I chose Philly at 3.
You biased fan, you wearing your
Yes,
Phillies
there
hat.
is a little bias. There is a little bias, but why I say Philly at 3 over Miami? Miami has 4 is because James Harden. And what I mean by that is James Harden, he's gotten healthier. He's lost a lot of weight, like unnecessary weight. So he's moving better because he hasn't been moving well in the past 2 years. But I also say that because he also took a huge cut as far as his contract to re-up with the Sixers and actually win a title and do something. So it allowed them to make moves like add PJ Tucker, add Montrezl Harrell from Charlotte, and then add Danuel House Jr. from Utah. So his ability to say, "Hey, I'm taking this cut, go sign other guys that'll help us win," was big. Not only to, hey, being able to do that, but B, locker room, like it's a big locker room thing when you're taking a pay cut to help out the team like that.
Yeah, PJ Tucker's a big pickup, and he's a big loss for us as well. So,
Right.
Teams that would give you the 2 teams that would give the Sixers the most trouble matchup wise, in your opinion.
So I'm gonna stick with the ones, arguably the ones we dislike the most, the fan bases we like the most right now in the East. First being Boston. Boston, there's always been that rivalry. But why I say Boston is because of, well, Tatum, but then it's more so not as much Tatum. The guy who would cause trouble for us would be Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. Those are the guys to which I would say cause the most trouble because, well, they have a knack for it. And then you add, of course, Brogdon into that mix. And the guards is where Philly kind of has been a little bit slow on, especially after losing Simmons. Yeah, they have, of course, Tyrese Maxey, but they just needed a little bit of help in adding like House Jr. and such. That definitely helps. But I would say, of course, Boston and then Brooklyn. Brooklyn, the reason being is, well, Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. So Miami at 4.
Yeah.
What do you think about them? What are your thoughts on them?
So I put Miami right behind the Sixers. The main part was, of course, yeah, the Sixers added a few pieces, but also they added PJ Tucker from Miami, which is, like you're saying, a big loss. Now, Miami, they didn't do many big moves, but they made a lot of re-signing. Like they re-signed Oladipo, they re-signed Dwayne Dedman, their backup center, and then, of course, they re-signed Caleb Martin. That was the most expensive.
We extended Hero as well.
Yeah, and that too. So there wasn't as many like additions, but it was just, hey, we're bringing back the guys. They're happy because they're now getting paid, sort of thing. But anytime you got Jimmy Butler, especially the caliber of basketball he's been playing with Miami, they're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's just, I'm kind of waiting on like, hey, is one of these other guys going to make an evolution, a next step? He was great at the beginning, but then he kind of like went into the background. I'm waiting for like Bam to just become this top 3, top 5, like, well, not top 3, top 5 center. And I'm just waiting for another guy to step up alongside of Butler. That's my only.
I think some of the undrafted guys like Max Strus and Vincent and Caleb Martin, and there's a few others that if they make another step forward, and Duncan Robinson as well. He's in preseason. He's been in the paint a lot more than normal. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like in terms of the matchup question. Like obviously Durant, but like we've got like enough. I'd say good defenders to like Durant. Like Durant is a little bit of a different animal, but like I'm not really worried about any of the other ones really. Like Philly, we have Butler that we can put on Harden, and Bam
Mhm.
can. Embiid is
Right,
obviously difficult for
right.
Bam, but like then with the Bucks, like Butler can go on Middleton and Bam in the paint against Giannis. Like those are like
Mhm.
obviously they're gonna get theirs, but like they're not gonna kill
Yeah,
us for 50 every night because we've got
no,
decent and got like we got good defenders in all the positions. So I don't know.
no. I think there. I don't think there's really any team that really matches well against Miami per se. I think the problem is Miami. They have a lot of great young guys, like especially guard position, but they're heavily. The problem is they have their main guard is Kyle Lowry, who's
Hmm.
often while he's older, he's now it's like okay, he's probably going to get injured at some point. So then we got to go to Gabe Vincent, and then we got to go to Tyler Hero, and then of course losing PJ Tucker, you have a rookie right now, Haywood Highsmith, who's playing the power forward position, like he's starting, and you could put Duncan Robinson there, but then it's like that whole we keep pulling from this position, like I was mentioning with the Cavaliers, which then causes, well, our bench is then kind of depleted,
Hmm.
or slash our starters just aren't as good as they once were.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if
Yeah,
we. I don't really know who's available in terms of um like Blake Griffin would have been a nice pickup, I think, for us just to like fill that void, like a player like that. But I don't really know. Is anyone
yeah,
available? Not really.
not really. I mean, most guys are off the block by now. Not that really that would, and you don't want to bring in a guy. I mean, you could always bring in a guy, of course, but at this point, if you were going to bring in someone, you would have done it already. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, technically speaking, you could maybe. I mean, I know you drafted Jovic,
Hmm.
Nikola Jovic. You could bring him up at some point. He's more of a small forward, but you could bring him up, to which would cause a little bit of more flexibility um, for the other positions.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
We'll see. Coach Spo has been
yeah, it's
doing
been
great
good.
for like
Yeah,
12 years now, so I'm not particularly worried. I don't know that we'll win a championship, but although I do think like this might be like the biased Miami fan of me, but like
yeah.
if we had beat Boston last year, I think we like match up as well as anybody with Golden State defensively. Just like the amount
Yeah.
of like athleticism and length we have on the wings.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think we would have beat them, but that would have been cool.
No, it would have
All
been.
right. Brooklyn's the last one.
Yeah. Brooklyn again. It's a lot of it's like a circus there. You never know what you're gonna see. You could see a Kyrie, a KD, or even a Ben Simmons, but at the same time, you might go a second time and you might not see the same thing. So I think as of right now, it seems like I'm seeing a lot of. I've been watching the preseason. I see a lot of KD, see a lot of Ben Simmons now. Um, Simmons looks about the same. Not really. He's getting back to his routine. I think that's the only thing. But KD is KD. Ben's going to be Ben. Kyrie, I haven't seen anything, but that's because I think he's a little bit injured, or he might be making that up. I don't know. But it's they've got great starters. That's no question about that. They have three possible like all-star caliber starters.
Hmm.
Problem becomes who goes in after them. Like Patty Mills, he's good, but was injured a lot last season. Then you have TJ Warren. He was great one year, then kind of dropped off since. And he's actually out right now with an injury. And then their backups are then like, oh, Patty Mills, Cam Thomas, who isn't a bad shooter. Seth Curry. Seth Curry's pretty good. Of course, I miss him. But Royce O'Neal at small forward, and then De'Aaron Sharp, the former UNC center, as the backup, and then you throw in a Markieff Morris. It just doesn't like you're gonna have those guys play like pretty much the whole game. But after a certain amount of time, that's going to take a toll on you. Like once you get to the playoffs, and I just think as good as KD is, the problem is then can you really trust them to do what they need to come playoff time?
Mm-hmm. Is Joe Harris still there?
Yeah, so he is still there. He was injured all last year, or a lot of last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's there. He's going to be their starting shooting guard probably. So you got, of course, Kyrie at point, Joe at shooting guard, KD at small forward, Ben Simmons at whatever position, probably power forward. Seems like that's where they're going to put him. And then you have Claxton at the center.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's kind of that drop off of, oh, Claxton, he's good, but is he a great center? No, he's not even a top 15. And then it's like some of these spots they're very vulnerable at. So that's the problem there is their big positions, because Ben's big, like he's big, but he's not a traditional power forward. And then Claxton's big, but he's not the greatest power forward. So then it's that vulnerable power forward center position, to which I was mentioning earlier, as far as Boston goes, trying to exploit them because, well, they don't have a Giannis, they don't have an Embiid, they don't have a Bam.
Yeah. So who you got? So you got Bucks in the finals then?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if Middleton can stay healthy alongside Drew Holiday and Giannis, I just don't see him.
Yeah.